And here's what we've created for the client. Look at that. Nice molding, relatively flat on the back to make it a little nicer against the body. You don't want this much pronunciation on the back side as well, and it makes it hard to mount a clip, but we've got almost an Alti style clip there, as you can see. And then that Kydex, and this thing snaps in beautifully. Our custom G10 scales. Look at that. Oh! That looks good, feels good. Let's get it over to the whetstones now. First, let's have a look at the edge here. Now this knife has a fairly crisp edge, and with the light test you can see not a lot of dings and stuff, a little bit maybe right here, but overall pretty crisp edge. I've had to be careful while I was working on this thing, but you can see it's not a nice clean edge. It's a little bit rough back here, a little bit rough up around the tip. So we're going to take that, of course, work just a few minutes of magic, and this thing will be looking beautiful. Let's have a look at the other side here. You can see there we have some sharpening, but not all the way back off the edge, which sort of removes the point of that sharpening notch, because you're still going to recurve your blade. I'm not sure what this knife was sharpened with. Like I said, the client did a nice job. It's a nice crisp edge, and my understanding is that he's used this knife a lot, but definitely some work. Probably up near the tip is the most work that needs to be done there. We've got some dulling and some chipping and stuff up there. Let's get it to the stones. So here we are. We're going to start out with our Shapton Kuramaku Blue Black. Both sides of the stone are getting fairly dished now, but we'll roll with it. That's no problem for a little short blade knife like this. Start wetting on the stone. This stone can be a little thirsty. It's not advertised as a soaker stone, but you could easily soak this for a couple minutes, and it would just help you a little bit starting your sharpening process. But here we go. I'm going to place our knife on the stone. Let me switch sides for you. Place our knife on the stone. Let's have a look. Take your time, get a feel. We're going to make sure now when we sharpen, we're going to run right off the back edge of the blade, as it allows us to do. So we could just do a couple passes here. Yeah, so we're right on the money with that angle. Some people use Sharpie and stuff coloring their edge. Then you can do a couple passes like that and see where you're contacting your edge. It's not a technique I've ever used, but it's one that could be useful. If you have a tough time visualizing, maybe even it's the case where your eyes just aren't that great, so that would help you visualize. Now I'm just going to do a few passes and see what's going on here, what I'm doing. And I can see there's already work put in. I'm already starting to remove the scratches from the previous sharpening sessions. I can see there's a little bit of convexing. It's not a lovely flat surface, so we'll need to put in a little bit of work. I'm glad we started then with this coarse stone. We need to put in a little bit of work, especially like I said, up near that tip, to just re-establish that grind. And you can check as often as you like, just to see what's going on. Are you putting the work on in the right places? And I can see we're spot on here. It's just a matter of time to get that edge in where we need it. Okay, a quick look at my bevel here, and I can see that I have created a nice profile all the way along on the one side. So I've removed that convexing. We have a nice scratch pattern all the way to the edge. You can see now, I'm sure you could see the light reflecting off that, kind of fresh steel. It's all nice and clean, and that edge is all the more crisp as we start to develop a burr. Still a little patchy because we haven't evened out the other side of the blade. So now we'll switch to what is the easier side of the knife. That is, to me, with edge facing towards me. Again, we're going to run right off the back of the edge. Let's just check our angle there now. Yep, we're right on the money. Just going to work, and notice I'm just working on establishing that straight edge first. Not all knives will allow you to do this. Some knives are pretty much just curved all the way, but you can see this knife has a nice straight edge, nice straight portion, and we don't want to lose that. So we're just going to keep right there. Oh, this knife is going to take such a good edge. I thought this knife, someone commented in the first video on this knife, they asked what kind of steel, and I was thinking it was stamped M390. I'm sure I seen that somewhere. It must have been another knife that I was working on, but it was stamped right up in, maybe it was that Benchmade. Maybe that one was M390, but this one, I'm not sure what type of steel it is. I'd have to look into it, but as I mentioned before, with good ceramic stones like this, I don't find it really cares. I can tell this is a pretty hard abrading steel. It's a pretty tough steel. I can feel that. But the time difference on the stones is really, it's negligible. It's not a huge difference, and it's not like I've heard some people will a certain stone work on this steel. Absolutely. It may be a little slower, may not all happen just as fast and easy, but like I said, I haven't met a knife yet that my ceramic stones here couldn't handle, and I handle and sharpen a lot of different knives and steels. So I'm just going to wet the stone out a little bit just before we finish up on this one, just to loose any particle. And then there's those single cutting strokes. Cutting meaning only going into my edge. I'm not doing stropping strokes, pulling away from my edge at this point, just cutting strokes. And I find switching to this last step just helps so we don't end up finishing on this stone with a big aggressive burr. Our burr is very small by the time we're done with this step, almost non-existent. There we go. And that edge is just so viciously crisp, guys. Like if you were using this knife for EDC work, hunting, things like that, this would be all the fine you'd ever have to go. One stone, one shot deal, that's all you'd need, and you'd have just an incredibly crisp edge. Not polished, not show-offy or beautiful to your knife buddies who want to see who's got the highest polish. You know, I wanted all my knives, back when I first got big into knives and knife collecting and getting a big EDC knife collection, of which has dwindled away, and I really don't have much now. But back in those days, I always went to 6,000-8,000 grit polish, sometimes higher, just for my standard EDC blades, and which now is just I almost never do. It's just not worth it. Now I'm going to a 1,000 grit Shapton. We'll repeat. Now I'll switch back to forward and cutting strokes, so cutting and stropping strokes. You can see here I'm holding that same angle. I'm working on that straight edge for a little bit, so I really lock in, you know, that geometry. I want that blade profile to be there. I want that nice hard straight, because if you don't pay attention to details like that, over time you can work out kind of those cool shapes, and it just becomes one big, you know, rounded blended mess. You want to keep those nice hard lines there. The coarse stone, that starter stone, that's where the bulk of your work is done, guys. Your knife is sharp then. Everything after that is just refining, polishing, getting a little prettier, a little cleaner. I can feel now when I switch over to this side, I can feel that burr grabbing the stone there, especially on the first few passes. Goal really with this stone is to remove all the scratches from the last stone. Establish a new scratch pattern, keep that same angle. Just going to shorten my length of time per side now. Then in just a moment we'll switch to single cutting strokes. Get a little water on there, clean the stone up. This is a Nagura 600 grit nanowatt dressing stone. Nagura is a dressing stone, and it is lovely. Look how it carves away all that stone particle. And for those of you that might ask, no, we don't have running water yet. I'm waiting on the pumps to come in. That should be here this week. Cutting strokes now. Nice clean stone, nice aggressive bite. So we're lessening pressure, and they're just dealing with that micro burr there now. And there we are. Let's get my Shapton Glassstone 4000 up here and repeat that process. Just going to give a light brush with this one. Not real dirty, but you can see how well it acts there on the stone. Just works all of that steel grit, all that steel gunk out of the stone. And then let's get this one nice and clean. The Nagura is a fairly soft compound, much softer than the stone, so you don't have to worry too much about it. It wears away kind of faster than your stone does. Look at that. Beautiful. You see we're gone back to forward and reverse strokes there now. Cutting and stropping strokes. And this 4000 will leave a lovely polish on this knife. And to like a finger drag test, the edge you're going to have after this, it's going to feel, to some degree, it's going to feel less sharp than with after this 4000. Now, to like something interesting, to like a finger drag test, you know, that cross drag, finger drag test, this stone will produce an edge that feels, to that test, less sharp than like what we started with on our blue black stone there, that 300 some grit stone, because this is going to leave you with a less toothy edge, and that tooth really grabs your flesh like that. And that's why, like butchers, for example, tend to have coarser edged knives. They don't work up to 5,000 grit or even 2,000 grit usually. Butchers will have a coarse knife, often dressed on like a steel, that leaves a fairly coarse toothy edge, because that grabs flesh so well. Does such a good job. The tooth just saws nicely. Now that tearing action that you get from a little toothier edge is why you get like sushi chefs and certain Japanese chefs, fish chefs especially, they want such highly polished and refined knives, because they don't want any of that tearing action on the meat. When they cut that fish meat, they want almost a glossy, like a wet looking surface on that meat. They want it so finely cut. They don't want any tearing action. So that's why they go for such a highly polished edge like that, is that finish. Which of course, cutting beef, red meats and things like that, that's irrelevant. You just want to be able to cut it as quickly as possible, especially butchers who are, you know, it's their job to work down meats like that and get it done quickly and done well. A toothy edge just serves them well. It's less work to maintain, and it performs extremely well. Notice, just finishing up now on with the cutting strokes, still using a little bit of pressure here, but now lightening way up on the pressure. Pretty much just the weight of the knife here now for the last couple strokes, and we're done. Got my heavily used K&N Knives paddle strap here. These are available at CardinalsWeather.com. We're just going to start stropping that edge. And stropping does a really nice job, guys, at refining an edge, just that last little bit of performance. And does a nice job on like day-to-day touch-up too, just helping keep that edge sharp for a little longer. Does a nice job. Remember, guys, this is a 4,000 grit stone edge. We worked through 3 stones, only up to 4,000 grit. And then with this strap, we're about to have a look at what that edge can look like off of 4,000 grit. And there it is, a nice quick 4,000 grit edge. Not a long time working at all freehand. You can see we've gone nicely off the back edge now and established that pattern. So hopefully the client keeps that in motion and keeps that nice straight edge and doesn't recurve his knife. Quick paper test. Oh, did you see that? I just sat there. Beautiful edge, guys. What a nice knife our client ended up with here. Beautiful. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button if it's your first time here. Appreciate you watching this little series here of taking this little old Chris Reeve and turning it into something totally different, total transformation here on this knife. So I'm excited to hand this back to the client so he can put it back in use for many more years and enjoy almost a new knife now. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, check out my website, carnolza.com, email link below for business inquiries. I hope to see you in the next video.